Madam President.
Senator from Alabama.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, these days information is only a few clicks away on your computer, and there's more information to be consumed than there are hours in the day. It's information overload, and it's overwhelming to sift through all the noise. But no matter the narrative being pushed, one thing remains: the facts. The facts don't lie. It's information overload. The facts tell the story better than anyone. Facts take many forms and play out in many ways. They are the impacts of decisions made and actions taken, whether we like it or not. But it doesn't take long for anyone to see this fact. The decisions coming out of the White House have followed one overall thought, one guiding ideology. It's not a unifying ideology that protects the freedoms and liberties we hold dear as Americans. It doesn't safeguard the values of our country or promote a vision for a brighter tomorrow and a more prosperous nation for future generations. It's a big government, socialist ideology. It's a vision of transformation. It's a strategy of undoing everything done by the previous administration, even if those policies were successful. Since President Biden's inauguration, every executive order, every regulatory rollback, and every message of so-called unity we were once promised has been in the spirit of doing the opposite of the previous administration, with an emphasis on the woke transformation of America's founding principles. But not Trump is not a strategy. It's not a policy stance. It's a reactionary and misguided posture that has plunged our nation into domestic and international disarray. It's a backwards approach to implementing an agenda to transform the culture and the values of America. And we, seeing on the ground effects of this approach in our communities, at our borders, and abroad. When the singular driving force of your presidency is simply being the opposite of your predecessor, our country faces the consequences of that decision. We're facing crises that were preventable, crises that are a direct result of policy decisions. This is an uncomfortable and inconvenient fact for President Biden. And Democrats don't seem too interested in the facts about the consequences of this administration's decision either. So let me lay them out. Here are some facts. The Biden administration inherited a condition-based withdrawal strategy from Afghanistan. The idea was that we would have a withdrawn of forces that kept some boots on the ground to maintain stability and limit chaos, and importantly, preserve the progress our troops have made. Instead of continuing this condition-based approach that would protect our service members, allies, and innocent civilians, President Biden came up with a new plan, one he thought would make for a better headline rather than listening to our commanders on the ground. President Trump's plan was to roll people out strategically and maintain our assets to prevent attacks on the U.S. in the future. The plan certainly did not involve leaving Americans, citizens behind. Instead, President Biden's decision left chaos in its wake. His decision left our troops vulnerable and resulting in the death of 13 U.S. service members. The average age of these service members was 22 years old. His decision has disrespected the sacrifices of more than 800 100,000 U.S. veterans who bravely served during the war on terror. His decision gave the Taliban their greatest victory to date and made them one of the top 10 most well-equipped militaries in the world, funded by the hard-working taxpayers of this country. His decision abandoned innocent Americans in a country governed by radical terrorists. And it is clear that he ignored the best military advice given to him by his top commanders and ordered our troops to put down their weapons and retreat. President Biden's decision to withdraw from Afghanistan this way gave the Taliban everything they wanted: control of the region, our own weapons, and ultimately a breeding ground for terrorism. And the fact of the matter is, our country will be facing the consequences of President Biden's decision for decades to come. Our country was safer for the past 20 years thanks to the bravest fighting forces in the world, our men and women in uniform. Counterterrorism is still necessary, but we've just made it harder on ourselves by not having ground forces and by closing Bagram Airfield. The myth from the White House is our country had no choice, but we were beholden to a deal made before January the 20th. But the policy decision made by President Biden emboldened the Taliban, endangered Americans, and encouraged our adversaries. Tomorrow, the Senate Armed Services Committee will hold the first open hearing, hopefully one of many, to review President Biden's decision and what caused our time in Afghanistan to conclude the way it did. The American people deserve facts, and I and the rest of our delegation will not rest until we have answers from the people involved.